Right, I'm sorry, but I give Jake Paul no credit, even though he has just beaten Mike Perry. But one thing I'm going to say about Mike Perry, he is not a good boxer. He is good at fighting in MMA with them small gloves with no padding, where when you get hit in the face, it's easier to absorb them punches compared to taking a glove off a fully grown man like this with more padding. And another thing about Mike Perry, to why I think he's not a good boxer, when you learn boxing, your coach will never tell you absorb as many punches to the face whilst trying to land punches to your opponent. That is one of the dumbest things a coach would ever say. But that is Mike Perry for you. Mike Perry's whole career revolved around him getting hit in the face and coming forward and applying pressure to you after eating all of your powerful shots, waiting for you to gas out from exhaustion and then overloading you. That's not going to work in a boxing ring because when you get hit with the punches with a proper glove, you get knocked down. Like, if you actually go back and watch the BKFC fights with Mike Perry, if you look at the first round, he gets caught a lot with counter strikes. So remember Luke Rockhold caught him with a good shot and he kind of like wobbled a little bit backwards, but he was still in it because it's not boxing gloves. And I'm actually shocked by the amount of people who actually gave Mike Perry a chance because on paper it sounds stupid. Because people bring up the narrative, oh, you got beat by a YouTuber, but it's not like that now. He is actually a boxer. But that's not the point. What I'm trying to tell you is Mike Perry is up there with one of the worst opponents that Jake Paul has faced in terms of boxing ability. Because he is not a boxer. And how many other MMA fighters does he need to fight for them to learn? You're not going to beat him. It's like they put some fake delusion in their brain thinking they can beat him just because he's Jake Paul. Or they're doing it for money. It's one of the two. Another thing about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson is going to get cooked when he fights him. There is zero chance that Mike Tyson's going to do it. Yeah, he might move his head and like use the peekaboo stance, which Mike Perry doesn't do because he doesn't move his head. But that's not going to happen. It's not going to work is what I mean, because the counter-striking ability of Jake Paul is very good. I'm sorry, it is. The only problem with him is if you can apply pressure and have him backed up against the corner, you can hurt him. But because Mike Perry, for some strange reason, I don't even know what word to use, decides to come out with a low guarded stance. In boxing, that is one of the most low IQ moves to do. And I thought he would have learned this. Has he not been preparing for the fight? Or did he just go out there thinking that all of this UFC experience was going to win him the fight? Because no, it wasn't. This isn't BKFC. So, low hand stance against a guy with his hands up. You are walking him down. That's a recipe for disaster. So each round going by, you're just thinking in your head, when is the fight going to be stopped? Because the amount of brain damage that he must have got in this fight, getting knocked down over and over and over and over again. If Mike Perry ever had a career in boxing, the amount of brain damage this guy would have, he wouldn't be able to speak again. Because Mike Perry already is probably going to take a lot of damage from BKFC, visible damage. But compared to boxing damage, it's nothing like it. And even if you go back to his debut in boxing, he looked awful. Like, he got hit with an overhand and just went straight down to the ground. And I was hearing people say, yeah, that was back in the day. Yes, it was back in the day. But he doesn't, like, change his fight style. The way Mike Perry has fought has never changed. It's just conveniently worked in BKFC. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, just because it works there, it's going to work in places like this. No, it won't. So really, Jake Paul needs to fight one of these, like, what's it called? Ranked guys. Give him one of the worst ranked guys at the top. Don't give him one of these guys where you've looked at his padded record and you know that Jake Paul's got a very good chance. Put him against an actual solid contender. But no, they won't, because they want to protect him, because they know if he actually does fight one, like he lost to the Tommy Fury, which you might not think is that bad, but on paper, he's a guy who was on Love Island. He's a guy who doesn't take his boxing career seriously. And yeah, he trains with Furies, but just because you train in a family full of boxers doesn't mean you're going to be an amazing boxer, because he really isn't. But he ended up beating Jake Paul. And that just shows you, if a guy like Tommy Fury's doing it, the worst ranked opponent, well, I can't say the worst ranked, but when I say worst ranked, I'm talking about the worst ranking of the good, proper ones, he will struggle against. Like, Mike Perry looked like a bantamweight out there. He obviously weren't, but it's the equivalent of putting like a middleweight against a bantamweight. Like, what are you doing? So really, he had no chance, but me being stupid thought, you know what, maybe there is, because if he can just pressure him, Jake Paul's not really got good cardio, he can get overwhelmed. But this fool here, who the only bit of credit I can give him for his chin, but his boxing ability, there is no credit to be given. And you might be thinking, you're salty, you must have put money on this guy. No, but I'm just telling you how I viewed that fight. And for me, I never want to see Mike Perry fight in boxing again. Stick to BKFC because he can win fights there. Like the fact that this guy beat Michael Venom Page still confuses me. But then again, it was in BKFC. If it was in boxing, I am not sure that Mike Perry would win. I just think that's one of the worst things he can ever go into for his health and for his ability. And even when Mike Perry was pressuring him, for a minute, like, there should have been no part in that fight where Mike Perry grew. And I believe it was in round 3. You could arguably say he won the round, maybe, because Jake Paul, like, took a break and then somehow gained a second wind in the 4th round. And then Mike Perry was just all over the place, like he was Kevin Lee after he ate that spinning wheel kick. So, I'm sorry. I do not rate Jake Paul, and I do not rate Mike Perry in his boxing. But why I say I do not rate Jake Paul is because of the opponent selection. Stop fighting these MMA fighters. I know me saying this is going to have no impact or anything, but I'm just saying it because that's how I feel. I just think this guy is one of, I can't say the worst boxer, but he is really, really bad compared to proper boxers in that division, which he will never face because he's way too scared to. So he can go and stick to fighting pensioners. He'll probably knock out Mike Tyson and then act like he's one of the best fighters in the world, when deep down, like I've said before, a lot of guys would knock out Mike Tyson, the younger guys who are in his weight class. And also, I forgot to mention the sheer audacity of this man to mention that he wants to fight Alex Pereira. I know what he's doing. He's got to be joking, because if he did that, round 1, left hook, he would be out cold. But we all know why he's saying it, because it's another MMA fighter who he will call out, but he will never want to fight. Because he knows if he ever fought him in a boxing ring, he would be scared. The counter overhand would not work. By the time he's tried to throw the counter overhand, he would have been countered by a hook. So that fight will never happen for more than that. The weight, Dana White would probably not let it happen because he doesn't like Jake Paul. They've got a bit of a rivalry. And it would be a stupid idea for Jake Paul. And we know how he picks fights, so 100% won't happen. It's just to get more eyeballs on him, and it definitely works. So yeah.